Greetings, my friends. Father Leo here, and homily for what we call the second Sunday of Easter. We've had the Holy Week, Holy Thursday, where we celebrated the Lord's Supper, and remembered the Last Supper where Jesus gave us the Eucharist, the bread of life, which is very, very important in our life, spiritual growth. And then, of course, Good Friday, and the death of Jesus on the cross, and we made it very clear that Jesus did not die for our sins. It was a political action on behalf of the Roman Empire, Caesar, and his enemies amongst the Jewish clergy of the time. So they combined together because they were jealous and afraid of Jesus. And then, of course, you have the Easter Sunday, the resurrection, where it was not a resuscitation of a dead body. You may notice that when Mary Magdalene met Jesus, she didn't recognize him. The disciples on the way to Emmaus didn't recognize him. When he gathered with the 12 in the upper room, they didn't recognize him. He had a resurrected body. That's the best we can say about it. A resurrected body, whatever that was. And they recognized Jesus in the breaking of the bread. It seemed to be very common amongst Jesus. When you read the gospel stories, you find that Jesus was very often going to a meal, he was at a meal, or coming from a meal. It was around food and bread and wine and fish. That's where Jesus taught about the kingdom of God, of friendship and fellowship and community and family. That's where he did. A lot of it was done around a table and a meal. Now, in today's reading, the gospel really catches our attention because it's about Thomas, called the twin. Now, we all know Thomas. We call him the doubting Thomas. So they're gathered there in the upper room, and they're all celebrating the resurrection. But Thomas now is there, and he says, wait a minute. I didn't see it, Jesus. I didn't see the resurrected one. And after all, it's not Jesus, it's the Christ they see. It's the Christ. And he says, I didn't see him. And he says, unless I see, I won't believe. You know, that's a good line. That's a good line. Because Thomas, doubting Thomas, and he's often been criticized for being doubting. He's often been discriminated against, if you will, because he just didn't say, I believe, and let it go at that. Thomas was very realistic. He's a realist, if you will. And what he wanted was evidence. He wanted evidence, some kind of a sign that would make sense to him, so then he could say, okay, now I believe. So the first thing that Thomas does for me is he honors doubt and questioning. And that's really critical important. Because today we're saying that followers of Jesus ought to be critical thinkers. Now, that's something new, because for many centuries, people were told in the pew, the preacher in the pulpit, he knows what it's all about. He knows all about God and the things of God. And all you have to do is bow your head and say, yes, Father, I believe that. And half the time people didn't believe it, but they went along with it. The community went along with it. But doubting, that's a good sign. To doubt is a good sign. Because it means we're going to grow if we follow up the doubts. It means that we're going to grow. Something positive will happen if we honor our doubts. The other place we experience is questioning. To question what we're taught. Like I say, we're supposed to be critical thinkers, which means to say we don't swallow stuff hook, line, and sinker. There's a lot of lies in our culture. There's a lot of secrets in our church. We're really not told everything. Never have been. Probably never will be. I don't know. I don't know the future. All I know is what has been in my experience. But here's old Thomas. He's a smart old guy. He says, unless I see something that shows up here, I'm not going to believe. But like I say, he models for us something that's very important in our life. One side of the coin is to honor our doubts, our questionings, our wondering, to honor that. The other side of the coin is being a critical thinker. So there are two sides of the same coin. Two sides of the same coin. Two sides of the same way we look at life and reality and what we're supposed to believe. And when we do this, we become critical thinkers. And that's what Thomas came. He's a critical thinker. He says, I gotta think about this. I've got to talk about it. I've got to hear what you've experienced and not what I'm going to experience. And eventually, of course, due to his struggles, if you will, his uncertainties, his doubts, his questioning, he's honored. The Lord appears to him. Put your finger here. Look at my hands. Put in my side. Doubt no longer, but believe. And then Thomas said, my Lord and my God. Somehow or another, he had a transcendent experience of the risen Christ. A transcendent experience which opened up his mind and heart in such a way that he could take it, and now it's his own. It's his own willingness to follow Jesus comes from within himself, and not because Peter or some of the other people told him, but it came from his own experience, where he was able to name that experience as meeting the risen Christ. And Thomas went on from there, of course, as we know from history, to become an apostle, a preacher, a teacher of the good news of salvation, the good news of Jesus, of justice and truth-telling. And so this is Thomas. And like I say, it's important for us to learn from Thomas. There's a great lesson here for us. And I think a lot of Catholics are going through this right now. And it's one of the reasons you see so many Catholics no longer attend church, because they became educated. Somebody told me we're the first generation of educated Catholics. And of course, if you go to university, you are taught to be a critical thinker. That just goes with university life. And of course, people today, because of television, the internet in particular, the social media, people travel the world. No wonder they're critical thinkers today. And they're asking questions. And that's good. It's really important that we pursue the truth. Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Swallowing stuff that you don't believe in, hook, line, and sinker, will not set you free. And we know that in the past, with doctrine and dogma, canon law, ritual, in many ways what it did, for a lot of people, it oppressed them, took away their freedom. Many people were afraid to think for themselves. Many people considered it a sin to doubt. Oh my God. You know, all of life is there for us to question. All of our life is there to doubt when it seems right for us to doubt. But then we pursue. We go and we look. We take ownership of our experiences. Just as Thomas did. He had the transcendent experience with the risen Lord. He took it in and internalized and said, yeah, that's me now. That's me. I believe. Yep. And he was on his way to serve the Lord by becoming an active apostle and proclaiming the good news of salvation. So Thomas, that's what he did. And so I guess what I'm saying to all of us today is how important it is to honor our doubts and our questioning. But don't just push them aside. Don't just swallow stuff that people tell you, hook, line, and sinker. It doesn't matter who they are. Honor your doubts. Honor your questionings. On the flip side of the other side of the coin, be a critical thinker. And that will move you to pursue, to go in search of, to seek out from within your own soul, from within your own spirit. And in some way you will come to see, not only to see, but to recognize the presence of the Christ, the risen Christ. You will see that. You'll be able to see how you're called into the great schema of following Jesus and proclaiming the good news of salvation. You may go to church, you may not go to church. I don't know. That's not up for me to say. Church is there for you if you want it. So that's up to everybody to decide that for themselves. But anyway, I think today is Doubting Thomas Sunday. And I hope that we're all, and I think most Catholics today, are doubters, are questioners, are willing to ask questions and don't feel guilty for doing it. They don't feel guilty for doubting. People often talk about a crisis of faith. Those are good things. That's the Spirit moving in your life to wake you up, to make you aware. But don't stop there. Pursue it. Wonder about things. I wonder if this is so. I wonder if that is so. I wonder if there's something else I haven't thought about. I wonder if that is so. Be willing to wonder. Be willing to be curious. Be courageous enough to question, to honor your doubts, but follow it up like a mature adult. An immature adult will say, well, I just don't believe. Walk away. Well, free country, you can do that. But on the other hand, I think that if we're really going to have that sense of being a disciple of Jesus, if we're willing, if we're not willing, of course, it's story over. But if we're willing to be a disciple of Jesus, a friend of Jesus, we are also buying into his mission. You can't have one without the other. You can't have one without the other. It's his mission. It's his mission. Jesus said, I came to do not my will, but the will of my Father. Jesus did that. And those have to be my words and your words. I'm here to do the will of God. And I have to search that out. And that's where we talk about nurturing our spirituality, developing our spirituality, becoming mature in our spirituality, growing up with our spirituality. Those are the kind of words we have to throw out in order to kind of make us recognize this is our soul work, the soul work that we have to do on our faith journey. And like I say, to me, Thomas has always been an inspiration. Still is. Still is. I still doubt a lot of things. I question a lot of things. But I also talk to people. I listen to people. I search it out in books. I search it out in nature, particularly. Remember, the first revelation of God is creation. Or somebody said the first Bible is creation. And it is 14 billion years old. The second Bible is 6,000 years, no, it didn't that, 2,000 years old. That second Bible, that's the one that's printed. But you know, creation is the best teacher of it all. And if you can't see the presence of the risen Christ in nature today, with the beautiful sunshine, the earth is birthing new life everywhere. Everywhere, new life is springing forth. My God, what a teacher. What a teacher. And a safe teacher. It's a teacher that won't lie to us. It's a teacher that will always tell us the truth. There'll be no lies. Nature is our first Bible, and it's a teacher who tells the truth and never tells a lie and can be trusted. And so with that in mind, I would suggest to you to learn from Thomas. Read the gospel, think about it, and then fit that into your own journey and see if it helps you. That's all I would say. So I hope you, and like I say, we're in the spring. Things are turning gorgeous out there in creation and nature. That's the place to be. Go out there and meet the risen Christ in a new life that's bursting forth from Mother Earth. God bless.